Hello, everyone, and welcome here to this very special wake up call with Dan Tortora, picture in picture with Jason Leone, the head coach of the Oswego State Lakers men's basketball team. Just year after year after year after year, just the successes of this wonderful coaching staff, which is led by Jason Leone, the student athletes that don't rebuild, they reload. This program we are very blessed to have and spoiled to have in Central and Upstate New York. I hope y'all appreciate it. I hope you watch it. I hope you go and see them. And once again, not only in the tournament, but hosting the tournament, Mr. Leone, welcome back to Wake Up Call. How are you, my good sir?
I am doing well. I am ready to rock and roll here. I'm one of the few morning people that exist here in this house. So I'm ready to roll here, get to talk to my good buddy. And I'm going to get a little haircut and get a good workout in. And then we got shoot around at noon here.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, once again, just this exciting time of the year. You have given us so much, and I've talked to people about this here recently, is that Oswego State has given us in Central and Upstate New York so many things to look forward to. Because every single year it's become a thing where it's like, okay, we know they're going to play well. We know the SUNYAC Tournament will hopefully go well on their side and do some good things. We know that they'll have an opportunity in the NCAA tournament, and now you're going to be hosting NCAA Division III. We are going to start things off in the NCAA tournament tonight against Babson College here Friday, March 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern Time in Max Zeal Gymnasium. Bring me into just how we got here. The team is 29-2. You lost one game in the regular season. You lost one game in the SUNYAC tournament, and here we are back to the NCAAs.
Well, it's been a great season. But it's been, like every year, it's been a season that presents its challenges. As we talked throughout the year, Dan, we've got a team that's comprised of a lot of guys with these extra COVID years, and
Yeah.
I have one guy because of injury that's here during his 6th year. So, look at it's been a phenomenal run with this core group of guys that I have thoroughly enjoyed, and they've given us so many good memories. One of the challenges that we've had this year is just kind of keeping an older team engaged in the day-to-day process of practices and things like that. One of the things that I read that I subscribe to is winning and losing can present themselves as imposters.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something that I've used with our team so much this year. So it's been very difficult at times. The more you win, it sometimes becomes challenging to understand or remember why you've won. And sometimes, believe it or not, it gets a little monotonous. And I think at times this year, the challenge has been trying to prevent our team from being flat, so to speak. And the same thing could be said of losing, right? Sometimes you can play really well and lose. And after the defeat that we took in our conference tournament last Saturday, where we lost to a very determined New Paltz team that had played us tough a couple weeks prior on our home court. We were ahead 14 points in the second half and had a very unlikely loss where we blew a big lead. But that had been a game that I had watched 8 or 9 times all season, where we had big leagues and did not perform well on the defensive end and kind of let the other team hang around. And that particular game, it bit us in the ass, and probably our biggest moment of the season. Now, positive of that, Dan, is that we played so well during the course of the season. We ended up with 6 wins against regionally ranked opponents, which I know people in this area are talking a lot about net rankings and things like that. So in Division III basketball, 6 wins against regionally ranked opponents are probably the best equivalent I can give in Division I to having 6 quad 1 wins. So that was the top, 1 or 2% in the country. So that allowed us to still make the NCAA tournament with an at-large bid. Not only that, but host the first and second rounds if we advance in our gym. So phenomenal season, unbelievable group of guys. I think this group is now 80-8 over the last 3 years, which is just beyond incredible. They deserve so much credit for the leadership, the poise, the work ethic that they've put in, and most of all, the unity that they've displayed in competition over these last 3 seasons. I couldn't be more thankful for the ride that they've taken me on.
Yeah, and you said 80-8 in the last 3 years. When I hear that, I hear Elite Eight, and then when I think it back to last season, and I think we got to go one step further. How does this team, like you said, winning and losing can present themselves as imposters, and it's hard at times to keep a team that's won so much focus, right? 18-0 in the conference going in to the SUNYAC tournament, 25-2 overall. How what is the message after the game where you said we blow a lead and we don't play the defense that we need to play in order to win that game? And so what's the message in the locker room after that? Is it, you know who you are, you know what you've done, and you beat yourselves tonight? Is it, hey, it's great to win, but we haven't won it all yet, so don't rest on your laurels? What's the message?
Well, I think the first thing that I did when I went live, first of all, I don't talk too much before or after games with the team. I think the older you get, or the longer you do it as a coach, I think, those are, especially right after the game, whether you win or lose, those are very emotional moments. So I think the less you say, the more effective it can be. We had some really disappointed team members, especially our seniors. One of the things that not only just winning a championship, but that the act of cutting down the nets in basketball is something so special. I think more than anything, they really looked forward to that moment. And to not do that, I think, was more than anything, Dan, it was a shock. So you go in, and I was incredibly sympathetic. They weren't trying to lose. Effort wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
We had a bad habit that was reoccurring throughout the year, and it reared its ugly head at the wrong moment. I was quick to point out a couple of things that I thought they needed to think about over the weekend, because we had Sunday off before we regrouped on Monday. And that was it. It wasn't, I didn't need to go in and send some message or bring them down, or I think at that point, with older guys, you've got to have some form of ownership that takes place with what went wrong. But then there's got to be a little bit of encouragement too, that, and a reminder that, listen, let's look at this thing. It's the old Jim Boeheim line, right? Let's not judge what went on here in a snapshot, right? Let's look at the total picture. And
Yeah.
I was quick to remind him of that.
Yeah, and when you look at the total picture, a two possession loss to New Paltz at 85-80 in your gymnasium, and that being last Saturday, and here we are back here this weekend for tonight, Friday night, for March 1st. Now that you've gone through some of those conversations as a team, individually, now that you've gone through watching some film, you go through your workouts and your training and your practices, what are you seeing from the guys and their response to being in that game, being in that situation, having it in their gym, taking that loss? What has the response been? What's the energy been like now that we get set for new life? You're 0-0, you're in the tournament. It doesn't matter anything you've done before now. So how is the team in this moment?
They've been good, like I would expect. Again, a very much a positive of coaching a veteran group is there's a player-led team, and they're a team that's incredibly intelligent in terms of recognizing in defeat, what went wrong. And I think that our energy level was up this week. And we've had 3 really good practices. The team that we're playing is a nationally renowned team. They won the national championship in 2017. So this is different than the Division I tournament. There's not a lot of those 1 versus 16 games. So we have to play really well to have an opportunity tonight. And there's things that They do, Babson, meaning that is going to be extremely challenging for us. And obviously, I think there's things that we do that can present some challenges to them. So we're expecting a really close game tonight, which I think will be good for our guys, and they're going to have to, get right, and they're going to have to the things that maybe we haven't done as well this year as consistently in terms of focus. If they don't do those things well tonight, our season will be over.
Yeah, and that feeling, right? That reality of it's great to be home. It's great to have these opportunities. It's great to be in the tournament, but I mean, this is it. It's as simple as that. You
Yep.
have to do what you need to do and take care of business if you want to move on. You've been through this so many times. You have seen this so many times. You know what it's like to advance to the NCAA tournament. You know what it's like to win. You know what it's like to host. So what is that message for you now? Like you said, I don't say as much, but when you are saying something, when your staff are sitting down trying to figure this thing out, what is the conversation that you think is going to get through? Because you and I have talked about sometimes you have to coach different people differently. You got to speak to different people
Yep.
differently. So when you're speaking to this group itself, 2023, 24, what do you say now, knowing that as good as this team has been and as everything that you brought to the table and in the history that you've made, there's the reality of we've done all these things, yes, but we haven't done anything this season yet.
Yeah, so I think you one of the messages I give them is you trust your training, right? So we've gone through a long period of, fall practices, in season practices. There's been about 75 times we've done a team activity, and then another 27 games. So we've done something over 100 times together. So you're trusting your training.
Yeah.
And I think as a coach, you provide encouragement that these moments are, as much about scheme and technique as they are about playing loose and going making plays. I think the deeper you get into the season, not to shove aside that they're on an island, but it becomes more and more of a player's game, and your stars have to play like stars. And I think it's very common. You watch enough sports, Dan, to know typically there's unsung heroes, somebody that comes out of the woodwork to have a special moment, usually in postseason. So,
Yeah.
so you talk about some of those little things, and at some point, I think when there's pressure and there's high expectations, that's probably one of the biggest compliments you can get as an athlete and as a program. When people expect you to do really well, it has been uncommon this year where, and I don't think it's intentional, but people that follow our program might come up to me and after an 8 or 10 point win, they say, "Oh, that was close." I got here 13 years ago, and the sense was, we were a hockey school and this, that, and the other thing, and to see that is an ultimate compliment that now we're not even talking about winning, we're talking about how many points we win by. So so I'm quick to remind the guys that they've positively affected so many people in our community and around our program, that there's that level of expectation and excitement. So because I think this time of year you really have to embrace these moments,
Yeah.
and it's a personal growth moment. I really believe that.
Yeah, and now that we're here, now that it's happening, now that the games are today, now that you're hosting, there's a game at 3:30, and that once that game is played, then you'll tip off at 6 o'clock. For you, is there any, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, is there any superstition pregame thing? Is there something you have to do? Is it one of those like I've worn this suit, and when I wear this suit, these things happen? Do you have any? Because I'm not. What did they say? I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. But like, there's that reality of okay, every time I wear this jersey, this happens, or I'm not gonna wear this sweatshirt when I go to the gym because the last time I wore it. So, do you have any of those?
No, I'm not. I'm not superstitious. I'm not even really into karma. My only thing on game day is, I go see my dad, who passed at his mausoleum, and and I work out. You know, those are my two things. And those aren't, it's not like if that doesn't happen, I feel like we're going to lose. It's just two things I really try to do during the game for different reasons. You know, my dad loved all these games, and I feel like even though he's not with me, to watch in person, just spiritually, I go and try and spend, even if it's just 5 minutes with him at his site on game day, and then working out just gives me the endorphins I need just to focus and that type of thing. So those are really the only two things on game day that I try to do.
With the adversity that the team just faced, if Dad was here right now, knowing everything that this team's done, the success that they've had, the capability that they had, what do you think Dad would say to the team?
Probably. I mean, the messages I give are things that I think that he would have told me anyways. So I think he'd just say, "Hey, your goals are in front of you, and just let it rip." So you guys have had a good season no matter what, and um, I think he would say a lot of things similar to what I've told them. So much of what I have learned and as a communicator for 25 years doing this now are things that my parents are probably my biggest influences over that. So I probably coach more from a parent's point of view now than I do as a tactician. Just things have changed over the years, and the way we as coaches coexist with our student athletes is such a different model now. And the expectations are so much different than when I first started 25 years ago. Not necessarily good or bad, but just you think about, especially now that I'm married and have my own kids, you think about the way you communicate with them, because essentially you're entrusted with somebody else's children. So
Yeah.
so those are some things I think about.
You are the suit guy on the sideline.
Yes.
There are the polo shirt guys, there are the sweatpants guys, there are the zip up, but you are the suit. Why? And I respect it tremendously. That's why I'm asking this question. Why the suit? Why the consistency of I am going to dress like I'm going to a business interview. I'm going to dress to impress, is what they always used to say to me growing up. Why the suit?
Um, I have these pieces of clothing, and COVID changed all that stuff. And I'm like, well, I have all this stuff, so now I'm just never gonna wear it. It's part of it's that simple. Two, my wife likes it, and I typically pay attention to what she says. But three, I'm just a little old. Like, part of college basketball that's unique to other sports is, um, you know, it seems to me as if a lot of times during college basketball games, camera attention is a lot on the coaches, and
Yeah.
I feel like on game day, part of my upbringing, I went to CBA in Syracuse, and we had a thing that on game day, we always had to, in addition to the shirt and tie that was required as a uniform in school, we either had to wear a sweater over the top of the shirt and tie on game day, or a sport coat. And that was just part of my upbringing, where like game day was something a little extra special. And I certainly could understand the comfortability things and all that, but our society has gotten so casual with everything.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong. I just think to each his own. And, my thing is, I believe it or not, I feel more comfortable on game day. I feel more like it's an extra special thing. And, that's probably the only time during the year, other than maybe a wedding or two, that I throw on a coat and tie. And that's just the way I feel about it.
No, and I like it and I respect it. And the Italian in me is like, yeah, if you wear, and especially like I don't know if you have these, probably do, but I always wanted a pinstripe, and now I have multiple pinstripe suits. And I remember walking through the mall with my dad, and he was wearing a pinstripe suit, and I was wearing a pinstripe suit. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and I go, the great thing about Italians is all these people think stereotypes are bad. But I said the stereotype that we have is probably nobody's going to bother us as we walk through this place.
That's right. That's right. That's
So,
right. So
how do you control the Leone emotion on the side? Because I've watched you many times on the sideline, and I've gotten to know you, and you know, you and I have become family. When I see you on the sideline, I feel like I know well enough where I'm like, he's really biting his lip right now. He really, you know, is just going to put the hand on the chair for a second here. How do you control those emotions? Because there's different ways of coaching. I've also spoken with coaches about, is there a right time to get a technical to boost your team? How do you master the art of your emotion and your in the moment reaction to things?
well, I don't think I have it mastered. First of all, I think you've got to understand that, like, I think the longer you do it, you have experience that, you know, kids or, players aren't truly trying to make mistakes. And sometimes you have to give the opposing team credit that they do things well. There's different errors that are triggers for coaches. You know what I mean? Like for me, you know, I'm more apt to get really visibly upset if I see a guy that jogs back on anything that involves attitude or effort. Those are trigger points for me. You know, if a guy misses a shot or even makes a turnover, things like that. I'm more apt to say, okay, these things are going to happen. But if there's a thing with attitude or effort, those are trigger points for me. You know what I mean? And I think it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world for our young people to know that things are not okay all the time. Every time they make an error, and but in terms of controlling all that, I think the older you get a little bit more. Okay, I've seen this before. This is not something that needs direct attention immediately, and I also think that, sometimes picking your spots of when you're going to show emotion, it gives more credence to, if you go to the well too many times with outward emotion, it loses its luster, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
So it's just, the older you get, you figure out your points where you're going to do that stuff and when you're not.
Before I let you go, Jason Leone, Oswego State Lakers men's basketball head coach, hosting tonight in the NCAA tournament. You and I have spoken about this before. I spoke about it with people this week. I said, you have no idea. I said, when you think about, like you were talking about, I said, when you talk about the NET rankings and there's 353 Division I men's basketball teams, I said in Division III, there's over 400 teams. In Division III, there's not 32 conferences, there's over 40 conferences. To thread the needle to get into the tournament as an at-large bid is extremely difficult. Yet Oswego has done it numerous times, including this season. Why the SUNYAC and SUNY Oswego? Why, to you, is there that respect? I mean, it's something that I can clearly see has been built over time, but when there's an entire nation to look at, why do you believe that Oswego State has that portfolio and that profile that that respect has been seen? It's not been shown respect. You haven't gotten respect once or twice. It hasn't been them saying, okay, the SUNYAC's okay this year, but maybe not next year. Because we talk about these NET rankings in Division I and what conferences benefit and what ones don't. But Oswego State always, more often than not in recent history, when they watch you, and I know you talked about those 6 wins and those quad ones, so to speak, but what is it about the SUNYAC and about Oswego State? Because I don't want this thing to be understated, that it's very, very, very difficult to be an at-large team in the NCAA tournament for men's Division III.
Well, there is criteria to making the tournament, so it's not unlike Division I in that way. So we've earned our way into the tournament. I appreciate the kind words about respect and that type of thing, but there is a nominal value with how we have a resume, so to speak, and there's actual primary criteria and secondary criteria and there is a committee, just like Division I, that determines who is eligible for at-large bids, and then obviously we have the opportunity like every league in the country, to win our conference tournament and get the automatic qualifier, which is what we've made it 8 times in my 12 years, I think it is. And 6 of those times we've won our conference. And then now this is the second time we've gotten an at-large bid. So it's important you play a really strong schedule, Dan. You know, and we've always done that in our non-conference, you know, and then you have to win those games, you know, against the really good teams. And, you know, one thing that's different from pro sports and college sports, you certainly can schedule your way to good seasons in college.
Yeah.
You and I always talk out there about, you know, the Big Ten in football, you know, Ohio State, Michigan, the Penn State, they can go and schedule essentially, you know, 8 to 10 wins every year, and they just have to beat each other, and then they're going to get in the playoff the way it's run. And
Yeah.
you certainly can do that in college sports, but we've tried to play the very best schedule that we possibly can every year. There is a little guesswork in that and research that's done, but I think because we do that and because we beat good teams, that gives us, you know, somewhat of a good opportunity if for some reason we stumble in our conference tournament to possibly make the NCAA tournament still. And that's where we are this year.
Yeah. And the final note here for me, when you're coaching in the game itself, how much of you is, I believe in our preparation, I believe in what we've done, even if we're having some adversity in this game, I'm going to trust it. And how much of you is in the moment, on the fly, ad-libbing, grabbing that board, saying, okay, you know what, this didn't work, let's try this. Because there's coaches that have that critique of, on the sideline during the game, they're not coaching, they're not writing anything up, they're not doing anything. And then there's the coaches where you're like, no, they grab the clipboard, it's still the pen and pad like it used to be. So what type of coach would you describe yourself as?
Well, I think I'm somebody that believes in process and that the games are products of forming, you know, activities during the season. But you know, I also think you have to have a level of preparation as a head coach that sometimes idea number one may not work, and you've got to be able to pivot on the fly and be willing to take calculated risks of trying something that maybe you weren't prepared to do, as you just mentioned. So I'm not dodging your question, but I think that I can point to numerous times where, you know, we've kind of done what we've schematically planned, but then also we've done some things on the fly that, you know, maybe we weren't prepared for, that required us to maybe do something a little outside the box.
Yeah. And I know tonight is going to be an amazing night, and you have that doubleheader. It's going to start off at 3:30. So head out there this afternoon. If you can't head out this afternoon, then make sure you're definitely there for the nightcap. 6 o'clock, Oswego State Lakers men's basketball in the NCAA tournament against Babson, and they are hosting tonight at Max Gymnasium in Oswego, New York. We look forward to seeing y'all out there. I look forward to the next time you and I get to have a meal together, because every time, even if it's been a week, I'm like, man, it's been a long time. I got to see Jason. So always
Yep.
appreciate you. Always appreciate what you're doing. I definitely have the utmost respect for you and your coaching staff. 3 years in a row now, coaching staff of the year. So congratulations for that, to your student athletes, to everybody that has believed in the process at Oswego State of what you were building. I honestly do. To me, it's not a hidden gem. It's a well-polished gem that's sitting right up. It's like that emerald gem that's sitting by the water in Oswego. So thank you for the work that you've done, and you know I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, Dan. You're too kind. So yeah, we'll be ready to go tonight.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk with you soon.
Thanks, my friend.
Take care.